With Halloween just around the corner, it's time to go through 13 of the most terrifying VR horror games of all time. Whether you're into psychological horror, creepy action adventure, or just good old jump scares, I can promise you'll find something you like. Let's do this. Kicking things off with number 13 on our list, Into the Radius. And if you're wondering why it's at the bottom of the pile, I guess I should briefly explain how I'm ranking these. I'm using a highly scientific method called How Often Do I Think I'm Gonna Poop Myself? While this survival horror will very likely require a shower and change of underwear after you play it, you'll understand why it's not quite so bad overall compared to others on this list. If you haven't tried it, in this game you're not just fighting for survival, you're exploring a world that's out to get you. You'll be scavenging for supplies, trying to stay alive, all while dealing with some pretty freaky entities. The atmosphere is intense, and the devs really nailed the environmental design and sound to create this constant sense of dread. And if you don't think this footage looks too scary, wait until you're fumbling with your inventory in the dark and hear something creeping up on you. That's when things get real. At number 12, we have Subnautica, a game that is as gorgeous as it is terrifying. And believe me, you don't need to have thalassophobia to find this one scary. This game is so much more than just an underwater No Man's Sky, as it's not just your average survival game. One moment you're gazing at the beautiful sea life, and then you start exploring those deep, dark waters. You'll run into these massive sea creatures that'll have you questioning every shadow you see. And let me tell you, when you're running low on oxygen and something huge swims by you, that's when the real panic sets in. VR takes all of this to a whole new level. It's like you're actually there, surrounded by water on all sides. The claustrophobic feeling is intense, and you never know what's lurking just out of sight. It's really cool how they've designed it, but man, it can get scary really fast. One thing to note here is that the native VR in this game isn't great, so you'll want to install the Submersed VR mod that adds motion controls which make it much better. It's still not perfect, but it absolutely deserves a spot on this list. From the depths of the ocean to the dark and creepy tunnels of number 11, Metro Awakening. This game is coming out soon, and I got a chance to play it a few different times on both PSVR and Quest 3, and boy oh boy does this absolutely nail the Metro atmosphere. You think you've seen dark? Try pitch black tunnels where your headlamp is the only thing between you and total darkness. There's this constant sense of danger, and everything from the lighting to the sound design is exquisite. As we move up this list, the games will feature more and more constant feelings of stress and fear, and very little downtime outside of pausing the game and just going outside for a walk. But Metro is way more than just creepy. It's intense, beautiful, and extremely atmospheric, with great puzzles, awesome weapons, and of course daunting encounters. The game mixes horror and action, but it's the tension that really gets you. You're always on edge, never knowing what's around the next corner. And when you do run into something nasty, well, let's just say stealth might be your best friend, if that's even an option, that is. Before we get to the top 10, you know what's really scary? Being in between save points in a truly creepy game and your headset running out of battery. But our sponsor ANNAPRO has got you covered, and for a crazy good price. So the next 30 or 40 seconds are gonna be worth your time, I promise. Their newest hot swappable battery head strap for Quest 3 and 3S is here, and at just under $70 it's an absolute steal. And you get an additional 10% off using the links below. I never recommend products I don't genuinely like, but this one really surprised me, so it has my full endorsement. It features a halo design with an ice silk cushion on the front and a super soft memory foam one on the back. The detachable battery features a prolonged design compared to other options on the market, and it can be attached in either orientation. It also has super fast charging at up to 25 watts. Just one of these gives you an extra 3 to 4 hours battery life, so a total of up to 5 to 6 hours of playtime. But you can also get an extra battery and dock for basically unlimited playtime. This is a great quality product for an unbeatable price, so check out the ANNAPRO battery pack strap at the link below for a 10% discount. And now back to the video with my top 10 best VR horror games. One of the creepiest movies of my childhood was the Blair Witch Project. Now imagine you're actually there, in those woods at night where every noise and shadow sends shivers down your spine. Sounds pretty intense, right? Well, that's exactly what Blair Witch VR brings to the table at number 10 on our list. This game takes the cult classic horror film and drops you right into the Black Hills forest. You'll be playing as Ellis Lynch, searching for a missing kid in this super eerie place. The atmosphere is super tense, and they really nail the creepy forest vibe. Sound plays a big role in the list of things that will freak you out. You'll hear branches cracking and all sorts of spooky noises that'll keep you on edge. The only thing that takes off the edge a tiny bit is that you've got a dog with you. He's there to help, but having him around can actually make things a lot scarier sometimes, because he might sense things before you can see or hear them, so seeing him get agitated means you should be too. Now I gotta be honest, the monster design isn't the most terrifying thing ever. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. The overall atmosphere is so creepy you'll be scared anyway. You think a dark forest is scary? Try being locked in a pizza joint with murderous robots. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted takes a familiar horror franchise and cranks up the fear factor to 11 in VR. But here's the twist, you're not just watching cameras anymore. In this game, you're stuck in a creepy pizzeria trying to survive the night while killer animatronics roam around. You've got to manage security cameras, keep an eye on the power levels, and hope these robots don't find you. And let me tell you, when one of these animatronics jumps at you in VR, it's way scarier than on a regular screen. The game's got a bunch of minigames too, which keeps things fresh and unpredictable. You never really know what's coming next, and that's part of what makes it so scary. Nothing beats a good old-fashioned jump scare. At number 8, if you think being dead means you're safe from monsters, think again. What if you had to solve your own murder while avoiding terrifying entities that can sense your ghostly presence? Welcome to the twisted world of Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. In this game, you're a ghost trapped in a creepy mansion trying to figure out how you died. But here's the catch, you're not alone. There are these super scary creatures hunting you down, and they can see right through walls. The gameplay is all about stealth and exploration. You're basically playing this deadly game of hide and seek with these nightmarish entities. And get this, it gets scarier the longer you play. You're piecing together this mystery about your death while trying to not get caught. Being a ghost in VR though is pretty cool. You can walk through walls and interact with stuff in ways you can't in other games. It's a fresh take on horror that really messes with your head. Ghosts are one thing, but demons? That's a whole new level of nope. At number 7, you're not just running from evil, you're fighting it head on. The Exorcist Legion VR takes the classic movie and turns it into an intense VR experience. You're a detective investigating demonic manifestations, and the game's split into 5 episodes, each with its own creepy vibe. Some parts are scarier than others, such as the church level that's super chilling, and don't even get me started on the haunted house. What's cool is how you use holy items like crucifixes and holy water to fight the demons. It's not just about jump scares. You've got to solve puzzles and really interact with the environment. And when those scares do hit, in VR they hit hard. So we've talked about fighting demons, but what about a chill vacation at the worst hotel you've ever experienced? Propagation Paradise Hotel is really well made, so I had to put it at number 6. But hold on to your underwear, cause the top 5 gets even more intense. This game is like being stuck in a never-ending nightmare. You're exploring this creepy hotel and the tension is sky high. It's got this vibe that's similar to the early parts of Resident Evil 2. You never feel safe and always on edge. What's also cool is how it keeps throwing new challenges at you. You've got different types of enemies that can come back to life, so you're always watching your back cause nothing's ever really dead for good. The game's not just about running and hiding though. You've got to manage your inventory and ammo if you want to survive. It has this whole strategy layer to horror, which is pretty cool. Alrighty, we're down to the top 5 best VR horror games ever made. Cosmodread makes everything on this list so far feel like Rec Room, because you're constantly being hunted by something you can't even comprehend with nowhere to run. As a sci-fi horror roguelike set on an abandoned space station, nothing is ever the same as the levels are procedurally generated, so you'll never know what's waiting beyond the next airlock. It keeps you on edge the whole time, and the sound design is one of the best ones I've ever experienced. You feel trapped in this tiny space station with dark corridors stretching out in every direction. The feeling of isolation is intense, and when the lights start flickering, that's when you know you're in trouble. When I played the demo of Resident Evil Village on PSVR2 for the first time, it was one of the most polished and fantastic looking VR games I've ever tried, horror or otherwise. Now I might be biased because the story is actually based in my native country and the village itself, houses, even the furniture inside, felt extremely familiar. Resident Evil Village VR takes the horror experience to another level. You're not just playing a game anymore, you're living it. The game drops you into this creepy village filled with all sorts of nightmare-inducing creatures. Things that'll make your skin crawl. What's cool about this one is how it mixes up the scares. Sometimes you're in an intense, action-packed fight. Other times you're slowly exploring, just waiting for something to jump out at you. The level of detail in the level design is off the charts, with a constant feeling that something is just not right lurking in the air. This is an absolute must-play for any horror fan, and I'd argue, even for people that wouldn't normally be into this genre, it's just that good. Ladies and gentlemen, the podium for the best VR horror games is upon us. These last three make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up just thinking about them. Now let's turn down the lights and crank up the fear factor. You know how in horror movies the characters always make dumb decisions that get them in trouble? Well, what if you were the one making those choices? Trapped in a house where every creak and shadow could be your end. Paranormal Activity: The Lost Soul takes the popular film series and drops you right into the middle of it. You're exploring this creepy house with just a flashlight, and let me tell you, that battery does not last long. I'm gonna be honest, I can only play this in short bursts, because the constant tension in the atmosphere is just too much for me. You never know when something's gonna happen, so that keeps you on edge the whole time. It's really hard to explain and convey through a flat video, but trust me, it packs way more of a punch than you'd think. The story's pretty engaging and the gameplay keeps you hooked. If you're into horror VR, you gotta try this at least once. Just don't blame me if you can't sleep after playing it, okay? I genuinely spent a lot of time contemplating if this one should be number 1, but ultimately decided to leave that spot for something else. So here we are at number 2, Madison VR. The fear in this one just never lets up, not even for a second. A psychological horror that reaches a whole new level of terrifying, and does so with extremely high quality graphics, and one of the most brown pants requiring atmospheres that I've ever tried. Madison VR is pretty much the scariest VR horror game out there. It's like being stuck in a nightmare that you just can't wake up from. The game keeps you on edge the whole time with jump scares that'll make you want to rip off your headset, and trust me, that will happen. The game's so intense that some people are worried it might be dangerous for folks with heart conditions. That's how scary it is. It's like the developers took everything that makes horror games scary and cranked it up to 11. If you've made it this far, then you already know who deserves the number 1 spot. Don't roll your eyes at me just yet, because I'm about to explain why Phasmophobia is the most terrifying VR horror game in existence, and how there's a way to make it even worse. This game is terrifying enough while playing it in co-op, but playing it alone? Nah, I'm out. Actually, I've never even been able to get myself through the door while trying it solo. It's just too much. But you want to know how to make it even more intense? Go get yourself a Bee Haptics vest. This is not sponsored by them, but playing this with a haptics vest makes it 10 times more terrifying, because you can literally feel the ghost brushing past you, even if you can't hear or see it. Hell nah. The game also uses voice recognition, so you can actually talk to the ghost if you're cocky. But be careful, because they might not like that. Phasmophobia is a nerve-shredding experience with constant tension and no single moment where you feel safe. Not even in the van. Do you agree that this game deserves the top spot, or do you feel I'm wrong here? Let me know in the comments and tell me about the scariest thing you've ever experienced in VR, or maybe even in real life. That'll make for a very interesting and intense comment section. I wish you the scariest of Halloweens this year and hope you enjoyed this list of the best VR horror games ever made. Here are some of my other videos to check out. See you soon, guys.